Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with DreamBuilder coach and life mastery consultant, Mindy Leishman. As a certified life coach, she helps people achieve breakthrough results in creating lives they love living. She offers a fun and dynamic DreamBuilder and life mastery coaching program that helps define, design, and experience a dreamed life. We get into what led her to this point in her life and so much more. Enjoy.
First and foremost, Mindy, thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So before we get into your life and your work and mission, I want to know, the last couple of years with COVID has been quite tumultuous, and I'm curious how you survived that time period and how it subsequently changed the way that you not only live your life but conduct business now that we're kind of coming out of it.
So I am an introvert, and it was the best thing that ever happened in my life. I hate to be that way because I know a lot of people suffered, you know what I mean? But for me to not have to deal with networking in person, I got very proficient on Zoom. I dove into my coaching, the coaching that I was taking at the time, head first. I dove into meditations, with Dr. Joe Dispenza. It really created who I am today and the life that I'm leading today, which is basically digital nomad, bought a house in Costa Rica. I can live anywhere in the world, that kind of thing.
So let's boil down exactly what you do for a living so that everyone can understand it simply. If I get you right now, I transport you into the front of a classroom full of third graders, and it's career day. One of the kids looks up at you and says, "What do you do for a living, and how are you qualified to do it?" How would you answer them?
I am a transformational life coach. So I help people create a life that they love living. I help them rediscover their dreams that may have gotten squashed throughout a lifetime. And I do this through helping people discover, again, what they truly love. What they love doing. So, for instance, if you love travel, maybe there's something there that you can create as a career, right? Instead of going to the 9 to 5. Yeah, and we do that through transformation. The transformational part is it really changes who we are in the world, how we respond, how we react, how we view the world.
And that's huge. I mean, that gets to the mantra of why we even exist. That's a huge function. And I'm curious, I have interviewed so many coaches, and to me, from the outside looking in, I'm really seeing that term more and more, coaches. And I'm wondering if that's really kind of a newer 21st century kind of a thing, and if it's kind of ballooned a little bit more post-COVID. How did you get into coaching? And from your perspective, have you seen this field kind of evolve over time?
So I got into coaching because out of necessity. I went through a really difficult time back in 2009, had, a lot of bad things happen in a very short period of time, including both my parents passing away, my brother passing away, and my son going to prison for drugs. So, I was walking through a very difficult time, having suicidal thoughts. Not that I would have done it, but they were there. I was a real estate agent in Florida, making well into the six figures. It all went up way overnight. And, with the market crash. And so personal development for me was a necessity. Like, I don't know if I would be here today if I hadn't jumped into personal development. So after 10 years or so of personal development and everybody saying you should really be a coach, and in one of the programs actually coaching participants for free, I discovered that I was a really good coach because I had done the work.
I would think no matter how well adjusted you are, we all need some kind of coaching. There's something in our lives that needs to be boosted up. Have you noticed that?
I have. And there's a difference in the types of coaching. So transformational coaching is not a new thing. It's not a new 21st century thing. In fact, Bob Proctor started studying this work back in the 1968 is or in the early 1960s, right? But this has been around for centuries. It's just COVID and people having more time on the internet and Google, have brought some of this to the forefront. So it's better known. So if you read Thomas Troward or Henry David Thoreau, or if you listen to Oprah or Wayne Dyer, all of these people were coaching transformational coaching or practicing transformational coaching. Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
So it's not new.
And it seems like it was probably in different incarnations to a certain degree. You sound like you're a very driven person, and I'm curious, let's go back to your childhood. What did you want to be when you were a child, when you grew up?
A forest ranger. That's really all I wanted to be, was a forest ranger. I grew up very poor, rural Ohio. My dad was a coal miner. Through some events, we weren't taught to go to college or anything like that. It wasn't how you were raised in rural Ohio in 1970s. But through a series of events, I decided that I wanted to go to college to get a better life. So I did that. Yeah, and I went into business because I had a little boy and I wanted to make money, and there wasn't a lot of money in forest rangers. So I wanted to give him a better life. Yeah.
I always remember a skit years and years ago when Dennis Miller was a stand-up, and this was in the 90s. He had one of his bits was, where does a forest ranger go to get away from it all? Which is just like awesome. I always remember that skit. So talk
That's
to me
hilarious.
a little bit, yeah, exactly. The one thing, based on what you told me about 2009 and going through this, do you believe at that point in your life, as low as you went and as hard as it was, that you were kind of prepared to a certain degree for the fact that everything was going to shut down and COVID was going to happen the way it was? I mean, even though you're an introvert, it still affected every way that we lived our lives. Do you feel like you had enough training, life training, so to speak, to be able to get through this and to do it in a good way?
Absolutely. I didn't, I'm a vaccination person. I got vaxxed and all that just because girl doesn't like getting sick. I don't like having the flu. I'm a big whiny baby. I felt, and I don't have to mention that on the show. I won't. I'm just saying, I'm just very I don't like being sick, period. Yeah, so for me, I never lived in fear. There was no fear around it, and there was no, I've made peace with death. During that time and during my years of doing yoga and meditation and but yeah, in answer to your question, I believe everything we go through, and I tell my coaching clients this all the time, what you're going through or what you've been through is your gift to the world.
I will, and I think this is fine to keep in the interview. I've been vaccinated, and I think that there's been a lot of things throughout history that we've had to be vaccinated against, like polio and other things that,
Exactly.
That stop spreading. I mean, there's a level of science that's irrefutable. And I remember when this all happened in the very early goes. In late March of 2020, I cut my thumb real hard and went to the emergency room, and my wife was really, freaked out. I'm like, this is probably the safest place on the planet for me to go. And I remember I went in there and I got a hardcore ER doctor, and I just said, well, just break this down, because this was in the early goes. We were all trying to wrap our heads around what we knew and didn't know about coronavirus. And he said that really this disease, or this virus, I should say, is something that's going to affect the most vulnerable. Those that are elderly and those that are really out of shape. That's the essence of all of this. But I do understand what you're saying, too, about you can't be in this fear realm all the time. I mean, if we did, we could freak out about the asteroid belt, something loose. And we have nothing, there's no way that we can say, well, yeah, that's going to happen or it's not going to happen. You have to keep living your life to a good degree. So I'm curious, did your business spike? Has it spiked since we've kind of come out of COVID and everybody has new realizations and revelations about their lives?
You know, I became a life coach not that long ago. So I've only been life coaching for less than a year. It was through a Joe Dispenza meditation where I started listening to my intuition, and I heard it loud and clear, you're supposed to be a life coach. And I was literally resistant. I'm like, oh, God, I don't want to do that. Everybody's a life coach. I have the story. And so my business just spiked from day one. You know, the day that I became, you know, the day that I came out and told my friends, this is what I'm doing now, and this is the program that I'm coaching, I literally, it just started rolling, you know. So, yeah, I can't answer my business spiking because, I wasn't, you know, I wasn't a part of it. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, and in any business, there's common things that people on the inside realize that maybe those on the outside don't, you know, whether it's a big corporation or it's a thriving business, there's things that you know, kind of industry knows. So I'm curious, from the way that you see human behavior and people that you deal with, what's the most common mistake that most adults make in their lives that they can fix through coaching or through guidance?
I think the most common, oh gosh, there's so many, but I think allowing our emotions to run our life. You know, when we learn how to really just look at something and say, oh, that's just an emotion or a feeling that I'm having, right? I don't have to be depressed. I can choose happiness. I don't have to be angry at my abusive husband. I can just see that he is a spiritual being and he's not doing a really great job on this earth at this point, right? But instead we get all caught up in the emotions, and the emotions control our actions, and our actions create our results. What if we just stop it between the initial response and our reaction? And I don't know if that's too complicated for somebody who's not been in coaching to hear, but I do have ways to explain it, more simplistically.
Oh, it makes sense to me. I think that makes perfect sense. We're only as good sometimes as those that we look up to and who inspires us. Who's been a hero or a role model for you?
Oh, gosh, I've got a lot. Bob Proctor, Wayne Dyer, Oprah, Louise Hay, the Dalai Lama. I've got a laundry list, but I would say those are my role models.
Let's whittle things down a bit here with this question. If you could meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Oh, gosh, would it be Oprah? Oh, it would be Joe Dispenza.
Excellent. So let me ask you this, based on the wisdom and the life that you've led. I'm going to take you into a scenario where you have a dream tonight. You run into your young version. Say when you're 20 years old, and you can give that young version a piece of advice based on the life that you've led, the wisdom that you've gained. What advice would you give your younger self?
Jump into this work as soon as you possibly can, because it's going to change the way that you look at life and the way that you react, which will give you the outcomes that will blow your mind.
So the other thing that's a big part of our growth as humans is, art. Art's a huge thing, and we noticed that even over the pandemic, people delving into, movies and TV and visual arts and music, everything. What was it for you in your life? What book, what album, what art was it for you that you still maybe come back to, something that really left a mark on you?
I love Sanskrit music, and so Sanskrit music, yoga, and, I can't call yoga art. Yoga is a bit of an art, but I can't call it an art, like in the form of painting or that type of thing. But if I were to pinpoint it, it would be that beautiful feeling that you get when you're listening to that music that is literally, every word is spiritual. Every word is about beauty, peace, love, kindness, compassion, growth, as compared to anger, hatred, make wrong, that type of thing.
what is it that motivates you every day? When you wake up and you look at your day and what you have to do, what is it at the end of the day that you feel the proudest of, or what motivates you throughout your day?
What motivates me is watching my clients get the understanding, have the breakthroughs. That's when I realize, or that's what makes my day, makes it all worthwhile.
So hand in hand with that, what has been one of the best client responses that you've ever gotten back? One of the best success stories so far?
Oh gosh, it's funny. There's so many, and they come so fast. Trying to think. Like I have one. I don't know. This would be a hard one. I'd really need to sit down with it. But I have one lady she's a breast cancer survivor. I know her from my real estate days. She was tired of real estate. Real estate can be exhausting after 20 plus years. She was tired of it, but she's like, Mindy, I can survive for 3 more years. I just have 3 more years until her, Social Security would kick in and she can get the Medicaid part of it, or Medicare, whatever it is. And within 5 weeks, she had created a career doing something that she absolutely loves. And although it's not launched yet, it's still in the progress of being created. And it gives her excitement and something to look forward to. And knowing that she doesn't have to just survive 3 more years in real estate.
Everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your clients, but ultimately you're in control of your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, I think I'm inspirational. I think I'm a leader. I think I'm very peaceful, and I walk in love, in light. Sounds kind of hokey, but yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. What are you the proudest of that up to this point in your life? If you lean back in the proverbial easy chair and think about your life, what are you the proudest of that you've done?
I've created really good humans. They're so good. I love my little humans that I've made.
So, Mindy, if anybody out there wants to hire you, anyone wants to know more about what you do, anything involving your world, where is the best place on the web for them to go?
My website. It's just my name, www.mindyleishman.com.
Beautiful. Mindy, I'm so glad that we had the chance to do this and have an interview. I really appreciate it. Good luck with everything. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the holidays in 2023.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and so much more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.